Yes.
Okay, we're going to start in a minute. Welcome to the Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission. We like to start out by going around the room and just letting people know who we are. And then I want to take a few minutes to talk to the two brand new commissioners that we have and find out a little bit more about them. So let's just start by Mohammed.
Muhammad Al-Azm, Commissioner.
Hi, Diana Cass, Commissioner.
Denise Janesh, Liaison.
Leslie Stambaugh, Commissioner and Chair.
Pam Dent, Commissioner.
Keita Cowan, new commissioner.
And Robin Stevens, new Commissioner.
Ali Remlawi, City Council.
I'm Stephen Postma, I'm the City Attorney. It's a pleasure to be here to the Commission. I come in and out. I usually have a attorney assigned to it. Margie is on maternity leave, and so I'm pinch hitting in all areas, but it's a pleasure to be back.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you. Let us start with, we've got two new commissioners, Keita and Robin. Why don't we start with Keita? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're interested in, what you're bringing to this.
What is my time limit? Because I can go on.
Don't go on.
All right, I'll do the short form.
You can go on later. We have but not.
So I was on the Human Rights Commission about, I'd say, 3 or 4 years ago. I really enjoyed the work. I ended up with a time conflict. So it's wonderful to be free of that and to be able to come back. I really do believe that people look for fair treatment and equality and justice in the places where they go every day. So I think that human rights really begins at home. So I'm happy and excited to work on this. I am the organizer and chair of the Washtenaw ID project. The Washtenaw County ID is available to all folks regardless of immigration status, home status, anything. We try to make it an inclusive ID so that undocumented folks, lower income folks can have an ID and access all of those services like a bank account. And I am Chief Executive Officer of Synod Community Services. We provide support services to folks, and we all need support sometimes. And I'm a public health and human rights attorney.
Thank
Well,
you.
welcome.
Welcome. Yes.
Welcome
Glad to
back.
have you back.
Great to be back.
Robin.
And again, I'm Robin Stevens. I work for the Washtenaw County Public Defender. I have for the past, since 1999. I don't like to put years on it because then it makes me know how long I've been there. Love the work. In my opinion, that's all, justice, human rights, it all goes hand in hand. So this has always been a passion of mine. I've done a lot of stuff in the community to move forward those issues. So I'm hoping that on this commission I can do that as well.
Can you also maybe describe what you're doing on the other commission?
Yeah.
and why you're important to this commission, as everybody, but there's a special linkage.
Thank you, Commissioner Romali. I am the chair of the newly formed, let me say this, I'm honored to be the chair of the newly formed Independent Community Police Oversight Commission. If we do it with our fingers, we get it right. And I'm just, like I said, very honored because it's a brand new commission. The goal is to police the police, is what some people believe, but it's not. It really is to help the community be more connected to the police because, unfortunately we have unfortunate connections to the police in very negative ways. So we're hoping that this new commission can work really hard to have positive interactions with the police across the board, but also to build trust between the community and us. And so I believe it's really important to have someone on both commissions other than non-voting people, someone who can have influence on both commissions. And so that's why I put my name in to be on this commission as well. And thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Glad to have you. Now it's time for public comment. We've got 5 people who want to speak. You have 5 minutes each. What we do, we ask people to come to the front of the room to speak for their 5 minutes. Denise will keep time. And please be.
Should we be signing up?
We signed up.
Oh, we did?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, we did.
And we will save our questions and comments until the end. Okay? So we'll start with Blaine Coleman
Where do I stand?
in front of
Okay, excuse me.
Mike. Yes.
Where do we stand?
You're welcome to sit.
Thanks. I'm still vertical.
Whatever.
So we're here to ask the, Mr. Doss, yours is right there. You've all got the Human Rights Commission resolution in front of you, and this was the one that was actually approved by the Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission years ago and sent to the City Council for adoption. Well, the City Council did not publicly vote on it and did not publicly debate it. And therefore, I think it's appropriate, in view of everything that's happened all these years, I think it's appropriate for the Human Rights Commission to go ahead and forward your same resolution you see in front of you back to the City Council again and ask them to vote for it. You read the papers, you know Israel has massacred many thousands of Palestinians between the time you passed this resolution and today. Many thousands of Palestinians. And you know that Israel has massacred thousands of Lebanese also in that time since you passed that resolution. And it goes without saying, I hope, Palestinians are human beings. This is a human rights commission. And it makes eminent good sense for this commission to afford some protection to the Palestinian people. Millions of Palestinian people will hear about this. Once you forward it to the City Council and the City Council votes for it, millions of Palestinians will read about this in their newspaper. The news will go worldwide, and it will afford a good measure of protection to the Palestinian people, because up to now, no American City Council has passed a resolution to cut off military aid to Israel. And asking to cut off military aid to Israel is a very, very modest proposal, considering how they've used that military aid to massacre many, many Palestinians. I don't have to tell you that Israel shot down thousands of human rights demonstrators who are Palestinian in Gaza, who are unarmed human rights demonstrators. Israel shot them down, and hundreds of them died. Thousands of them are going to be on crutches and wheelchairs, maimed for life. If they're lucky, some of them will get replacement legs. So this is the kind of thing that U.S. military aid to Israel does. And had you known all of this stuff was going to happen, you would have probably passed a much stronger, louder resolution back in '03. But I'll take this one. If you can get this resolution forwarded to City Council, if you can vote on it tonight or next session, put it on your agenda if you need to, it would be a major help to millions of Palestinian people. And any questions you have, I can take.
At the end of the session.
I see. Well, then why don't you go ahead?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. Again, I also am an environmental health activist and a public health investigator and an activist. And I can tell you, children of Gaza are suffering immensely as a result of massive violence that is inflicted on them day in and day out. Imagine that you're living in your home, the military pours in, drags your father out, shoots and kills them, and then you are homeless. They demolish your home, they make you homeless, they arrest your sisters and brothers, they are in jail, you don't know what's happening to them. Any single one of these happening to any one of us would just turn our lives upside down. We would not know what to do. That's happening to every single Palestinian in Gaza and in West Bank every day of their life. Courtesy of our taxes, we pay for it. We dearly pay for it. Billions of dollars each year that could go to the education of children right here in America, could go to health of people in this country, goes straight to government of Israel, and it goes straight into their defense programs, and it goes straight to kill Palestinians. We pay for it. It's despicable what we do with this money that we send them. So what I'm saying is I've lived under the occupation of Israelis. I tasted it. I know how it feels to have blood in your mouth because they beat you. I know how it feels to not be able to see because they threw a grenade at you and the smoke filled your lungs and couldn't. I've lived it. I'm telling you, what we are enabling Israel to do is nothing short of the most atrocious behavior of humanity. We should be embarrassed to live in a time when Israel exists. We must stop them. And we can't stop them but by cutting off their funds. We can stop it. It is ours to stop. And if we don't, it will be a stain on our humanity. We cannot afford to have any more stains. Clearly, the United States has created a lot of stains. This one, let us stop. Let us stop this. I've had students who have been beaten to within an inch of their life in Palestine. I have watched children, broken heads, broken arms, no legs, and this keeps happening. The only person who can stop it, the only one who can stop it, is the people of the United States of America. It's us who can stop it, because our politicians, our institutions, our governments, they have proven to be extremely violent and worthless. They're worthless. They're just warmongers. They want more wars, more blood, more blood, more blood. That's what they want. And we've got to say no more. No more. It's enough. We've done enough damage. We've ruined people's lives. We have destroyed the environment. We've made everybody's life hell. No more. That's what I'm asking you to do. Now, last time, one of the council members actually said on the meeting that they had last week, he said, tell the Human Rights Commission to send us the resolution which they prepared and they had in 2003, was it? Send it back up, let us vote on it. All you have to do is to send this resolution, this very resolution, back upstairs and let them vote on it. That's all I'm asking. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
The third person is not clear on this. I usually take them in order, but there are lots of arrows. Who wants to go first? It looks like David. You're a group, huh?
Okay, I'll start. Good afternoon. My name is Morgan Leek. I am an ambassador, a part of Ambassadors and Sneakers, which is a transatlantic summer academy between Germany and Berlin. Now, what we do is 12 students from America, 12 students from Germany come together every summer, and our main focus is human rights, just like you guys. We have met on the basis of LGBTQ issues and rights. We have talked about women's rights. We have talked about human trafficking, child labor laws. We have talked about adult labor laws, and so many things of that nature. And we are coming to you because in the last week of July and the first week of August, we already went to Germany, we went to Leipzig. So now we're coming to Ann Arbor and Chicago, and we're bringing the German team over here, and we're gonna speak with politicians, consulates, embassies, and that's something that we did in Germany. We met with, I forgot her name, I'm so sorry, but we met with an embassy representative, we met with a politician, consulates, and we also met with many activists who are also prominent in that area. And it's really important. And the reason why we're coming to you is because you guys are sitting here, you come in these meetings every week, you talk about this, and we are you guys just younger, and that's the point. You know, the future, like we are the future. Like this is our generation, and the human rights is a big issue. Like that's how we live. And so going to Germany, we got to connect with people, and that's the problem. In order to change something or to meet with people, you have to connect. You have to understand them. So we connected with the culture. We connected with the history. We connected with the food, the location, the environment. We learned what we needed to learn in order to make a future a better place. We voted on issues. We discussed. Our minds were definitely open. We saw different points of views. So when we come to Ann Arbor, we want that same thing for the German team. We want them to understand, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we need to do. And so far we have raised $4,500. But we want to raise more. We have an alumni team of more than 50 people. They've raised over $15,000 within the past 3 years. The German government thinks this is a great program. They've had great, outstanding rates with it. So they have funded their side for more than 3 years, and we want to ask for funding for our side of about $2,000.
The German government sponsors most of the program. They give 135,000 euros every year, and so we were hoping that providing some funding from the American side, especially since the program is based out of Ann Arbor's sister city in Tübingen, and so having them be the only ones sponsoring it would be seems like we could be doing more. Also, we have a goal of to approach about $7,000 as a fundraising goal this year, and if we got $2,000 from the city of Ann Arbor, it would greatly improve. Like the German government would appreciate it. We could help to keep this program going further, because usually the German government program funds it in spaces of 3 years. In the first 3 years they thought were very successful, so they funded it for another 3 years, and we think with help from the American government we could help it to extend further than just those 6 years.
Got to. No. We got.
No.
Are you guys done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
What
you.
did they ask us?
So you're asking, okay.
We
need quote.
clear on your ask.
Okay. So we're trying to, I guess we're trying to get a resolution to City Council, I guess, to sponsor us and give us $2,000 so that we can give that to the program and help it go for another 3 years after its current license ends.
Okay.
And when do you need it by?
We could have it at any point, but preferably before July 27th, which is when the second half of our program starts. However,
City government.
if that's not possible, it would be fine if it was after August 11th. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even that's pushing.
Okay. Other questions about that for them? Let's go backward.
I have a question. How many members do you have in the American team?
There's 12 from the American team. Right now, they draw from both Michigan and Illinois. We have 10 people from Michigan, mostly around the Ann Arbor area. We have, I think, 3 that are from the Metro Detroit area, and 2 that are from Illinois.
And how were you, did you fill out an application? How did you get on the team?
So usually it's for students who are in teen councils. So I'm in a teen council with my museum that focuses on reaching out to inner city youth with giving out art, because I know that a lot of school students have taken out art. Other people are on the Ann Arbor Teen Council. So it's for teen council members. And then we send in an application that we just like our name, address, little things like that, passport, and then we fill out a 3-question essay, resume type thing based on human rights and what our passions are, and then they pick from that and who they feel would best suit the team. So it's 6 girls and 6 boys.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sounds like a good group. Is there anything written on this group or about what you do? And
There,
Yeah, we have there's a Facebook page and I think an Instagram account, and we have throughout the trip we have documentation teams that they sort of take pictures of what we do on certain days and write about everything that we did that contributes to the program. So do you know what the actual Facebook account is?
I can look it up. Ambassadors
Yeah,
and Sneakers, and then the DAI Institute, that's the German
German-American Institute.
yeah, that's their Instagram page. And then we also have a website, DAI.
Okay.
And then there's also the news did a story on us last year. So if you just search up Ambassadors and Sneakers, you can see last year's team and all the things that they did.
Okay. So if we decided to go forward with a resolution, we would need somebody from your team to help give us information to
Most
justify.
yes.
definitely, you can send emails.
Okay.
Any of us would probably be available for that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we can just, we should ask other questions about the other speakers. and-
I mean, I don't know if they're gonna stay till the end, and I didn't wanna break protocol on waiting till the end, as we are with, the prior topic. But, have you reached out to anyone else in our city, whether it's the city administrator, the assistant, have you made contact with anybody in our city right now?
I think one of our members has. His name is Ben. Yeah, but
Okay.
no one responded to him, so we decided to
Yes.
come today.
They reached out to a lot of private companies. I cannot think of the names offhand, but there have been a lot of emails to private companies from like people like Ben, and then also another girl who lives in Illinois.
And I reached out to the city council. They didn't respond.
Well, this is rather unusual. I don't know if this commission has ever done this in the past.
No, we have not.
I just know that we do have sustainability grants that the sustainability office is. I don't know if this would.
I think I don't know what you think about community events funding, because it's not really like we do have a community events fund that goes through a process every year where, given the modest nature of the ask, might be the best place for it, but there's, there are deadlines that are months ahead of the process, and it kind of is a yearly
takes a long
cycle.
time.
Yeah.
So what time, like, if you missed the deadline for this year, is this something still worth looking into for
Yes,
the following?
it's currently funded until the end of 2021.
Okay.
So they would definitely be accepting any money up until that point.
Especially if you had like an event tied into what you were doing, that might be a way to get some funding from the city. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, try to look at other, I will let this body discuss this, but
It's not.
If you start.
There's probably something in the
precedent,
city, but right now we don't have enough information, and we don't have,
And this
We have-
body only meets once a month,
right.
so.
And there are other people who ought to be, I wouldn't even know who to
So
talk to about
there
it.
does take time, like I said early on, to get things approved and talked about, but if it's something that is gonna be a need for a foreseeable future, maybe myself and Grand and we can talk to others to direct them to other parts of our city.
I think that's more.
But the work is commendable and honorable,
Yes.
and
Yes.
And Sarah Higgins is the one who coordinates the
Sarah
community
Higgins.
events fund, so she might be someone worth
And Sarah
reaching out
Higgins
to.
is extremely helpful. And she's the assistant to the city administrator,
Yes.
and I'm sure she'd get back to you. Yeah, I don't want to take too much time from the commission and its work it's got to do tonight, but it is.
We do have a full-
I just want to reiterate the awesomeness of what you all are doing, and encourage you to continue. There's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Comments or questions for the other two speakers?
Yes,
This
I have
is-
a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Does it have to be this resolution?
Doesn't have to be, you have the power to do anything that you want to do.
No, I'm saying, is your ask a resolution, not
Yeah.
just this resolution?
Yes, ma'am, our ask is that resolution, because it's simple, it kind of gets to the point, cut off the military aid, you've already done the work, it's already done, so it should be easy to just press the button, forward it to city council, and ask them to vote for it.
Well, I guess I'm wondering if for instance, a resolution that said the city of Ann Arbor is against murder or some version of that, whether that would be sufficient, or does it have to be to the United States government?
Well, if the city of Ann Arbor were directly writing checks to the Israeli military, I would say, yeah, speak against that too. But as it happens, it's the U.S. government that sends billions and billions of dollars to Israel every year, huge amounts of military aid, and it's a simple matter to just say, cut it off. So in my mind, it's simplicity. But of course, as a Human Rights Commission, you have the power to rewrite the resolution any way you want to.
No, let me address that. I personally am very against this, and I'm against it not because of the issues, but because we are the Human Rights Commission. We've got in some ways a broad mandate, but it's not this broad. We're charged with protecting the human rights of the people in Ann Arbor while they're in Ann Arbor, and mainly on the basis of our city ordinance and the state human rights laws. This is way out of our mandate. It was way out of the mandate of the Human Rights Commission in 2003. And because they went beyond, we're still hearing about it. I mean, it's expanding something where we've got stuff that we're supposed to do, it's under our control. And there are an awful lot of issues like this, by the way, that we all, I'm sure, have feelings about. I've got some pet issues, I'm sure you have pet, we all have issues. There's an awful lot of awful things going on.
So you're saying our mandate wouldn't permit us?
I feel the mandate doesn't permit us.
Okay.
Now, I think you can, I don't know.
I can respond to that. In 1986, the city council passed a resolution for divestment and boycott against apartheid South Africa. And there was no quibbling about that, because the way black South Africans were treated directly affects how black people were treated around the world, including right here in Michigan. Similarly, I believe the way Palestinians are basically shot down en masse by Israel affects how Palestinians here in Ann Arbor live, and there are thousands of Palestinians living right here. It affects how Arabs in general are treated right here. And so it is a human rights issue that directly and acutely affects Palestinians, Arabs, and the broader Muslim community right in Ann Arbor.
Live right here.
Directly.
The racism that gets the thumbs up with atrocities that Israelis commit on Palestinians, the racism that perpetuates globally against Arabs, against Muslims, it comes right here. It impacts us right here. I feel that it is her feeling that it's not within the mandate of this body. I am thinking that it is within the mandate of every human being on this earth
individually,
to do
yes,
something about this atrocious condition that exists in Israel against Palestinians, and that would mean a lot against racism globally, against people of color, against Muslims, against Arabs, against Iranians. We know that having a racist guy in the White House helps accentuate racist feelings within the United States. It has caused a lot more racial incidences. People have been beaten, people have been killed right here in America. And I think that we must respond to this this atrocity, which we fund, which the United States funds.
May I ask the chair a question?
Sure.
Does city council need a resolution from us to take up this issue?
No, of course not.
So that to me, if that's outside of our mandate,
This commission is here to serve that purpose.
oh, yes, but it's outside of our mandate.
It is.
That is up for interpretation.
Well, you could
Oh,
read the
really?
mandate.
Yeah, I think that could be interpreted many different ways.
So do you feel it is not?
I believe an injustice anywhere is an injustice here as well.
Thank you.
And I don't think we can cherry pick the causes that we choose to speak on and help address. So I think this is where the conversation takes place. It doesn't take place at the council table. In my opinion, I think this is where it gets hashed out, and then council can take action based on what this body then says, if it says anything.
And I agree, injustice anywhere is injustice.
You
That's
know?
right.
Thank you.
I have a question. What good will it do? Since the city of Ann Arbor is not the pocketbook for military aid to Israel, I think we all agree that it's an injustice. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. But pushing through a resolution and then asking it to go to the city council, what does that do? How do you see that affecting change?
I can tell you that exactly the same process happened with the South Africa divestment movement in the 80s, and the Ann Arbor City Council was part of that. What it does, of course, is it spreads the movement, it spreads awareness, and it stops U.S. aid from going to killing non-white people. That's what it did with South Africa. And you know, when you're pushing for human rights, you're always outside your mandate. Whoever you are, wherever you are, you will run smack up against a brick wall that says mandate all over it. My dad thought that Martin Luther King Jr. was outside his mandate to speak against the Vietnam War. Okay? A lot of people thought that Martin Luther King Jr. was against his mandate for marching without a police permit. And of course, police permits were impossible to get, so he got arrested a lot of times. So you are always outside your mandate when you're speaking up for human rights, because you're speaking for something that doesn't yet exist. A situation where Palestinians are no longer being massacred at the whim of the Israeli military, that's a situation that doesn't exist yet. A situation where Palestinians can walk freely and go anywhere like any other human being, that situation doesn't exist yet. So basically what we're talking about is we're promoting a situation of human rights for Palestinians that so far has no actual existence in reality. So it sounds like it's outside everybody's mandate. It sounds like it's not reality. It sounds like it's impractical. Well, human rights is always impractical until you end up winning.
Okay,
Basically, though, what I want to add to that is that, there's a big movement, boycott, divestment, sanctions against Israel. And there's been other boycott movements. Normally, what these movements do, they don't actually so heavily impact the economy of the target state, in this case Israel. It basically ruins their legitimacy. It basically tells the world this is an illegitimate, violent, racist state.
We
do
stop
not
now.
want to promote it anymore. So, let me finish. Basically, that's what it does. If we, in Ann Arbor, as the first city in the United States, pass a resolution saying, cut off military aid to Israel, that would be a huge, huge impact. It will have huge impact. And I can assure you, the next city would be Seattle. In Seattle, people have been trying to do this. So help us be the first one who will do it, be the first one who says Palestinian lives do matter. And we will not fund murder of Palestinians anymore.
It stops Israel from pulling the trigger.
That's enough.
I'm sorry?
We're done.
What did you say?
This is, it's enough right
It-
now.
And
I
by
have-
that, we just mean the time.
I mean the time.
Oh, I thought you
And
were
you've been talking
insulting
over
me.
me, so.
Okay, well, she was
We've
not
got a guest and we've got things that have to be done because he has to leave. And we've asked him here. So I'd rather not talk about this now. It was not on our agenda. How many people, I guess we need a vote about whether we're going to talk about this at the next meeting. Does that sound reasonable?
I guess, as long as we also discuss the mandate,
Well, yeah, okay.
you know, so both things.
Yeah, right, no, both things.
I wonder, is there someone maybe from staff who could come in and give, since there's so many new members of this commission, maybe a little refresher on what the mandate is?
Yeah, in the meantime, I'd be happy to come next. I don't like to speak off the cuff about an interpretation of an ordinance, which is a city ordinance, but I'm happy to look at that and to just go over that, because that's certainly helpful. And council can always change the mandate if they choose. But I'm happy to look at it. I'm just not prepared to speak on it
Okay.
right now.
Yeah, I just think given the turnover
think
that
we-
we've had
I
on the
think-
commission, it might be a.
Yeah, I
but
think we've
that-
done as
that-
much as we can do
That might be
today.
a good framing to have any number of discussions, but maybe that would.
Okay.
I'm in favor of having further discussion in the next meeting. I would just add that I always respect people who stand up and call out human rights abuses no matter where. It takes courage to do that no matter what. And I would also add that it would make the job a lot easier if you had an updated resolution, and maybe a more pinpointed one. And finally, I would add too that it's not just Israel, it's also in another case of significant amount of our tax dollars going to the killings of people in many other countries of the world. So that's something else that we could discuss. I mean,
How our mandate could broaden and become unwieldy. I mean, that's the problem. Think about what the implications of this
yeah,
are
I mean,
also.
we could have the same discussion about Yemen.
And we could
That's
have
right.
the same
Let's do
discussion
that
about
too. Hey, I'll come for
number
Yemen.
places.
Well,
yes.
but that doesn't exclude doing one when we're asked.
Right,
Correct.
right.
I
No.
agree.
The main point, I think, here, to find out if this is one of our mandate, our job to do it. Otherwise, I really feel very strongly that the city council, who had the power to discuss such a thing and take such a resolution, is the right place to go. We are just, limited. Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission, we have a very narrow scope.
The city council sent us to you guys, and
No,
he just told you that this kind of talk should be hashed out here. So that's your answer.
We have lots of different opinions. Next time, and do we need to vote on it? To include this in our agenda
We have
next
to
time?
find out, from the city
Yeah, why not?
attorney,
Go for it.
Right,
if this
we'll-
is
we'll need
part
that
of
too.
our,
That's right, that'll be
privilege,
part of this
job, or
discussion.
whatever.
Right.
If it's not part of our thing, why we waste time on it,
Okay.
This is no question about it, it's political issue, of course, a human right issue. We know all about it. Most of us
Okay.
sitting on this table, they agree,
What do you
what's
agree?
going on
We've
is not
got- we've got
right.
a-
Oh,
But-
thank you, sir.
But
I
it's not,
appreciate
but
that.
it's not our job to,
It is your job.
Well, we were going to talk about the mandate at the next meeting.
Next meeting.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
move
Okay, we have a
to
motion.
place this on the agenda
Thank you.
for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Where we can review the mandate with the city attorney and then discuss.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nothing. Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining. If you abstain, we don't have a, oh, yes, we do. Well, do we? Do we? Because we've got 5 people here because she hasn't signed her. See, you can't vote.
Oh,
Is that
so
true?
I
Am I right?
can't second.
Then she can't.
So I think you can't second, that's right.
Yeah, the issue of abstaining, I'll also talk about because that also may not be permitted, you know, to abstain from a vote. And so I will have to look at that. So I just, you guys are throwing all sorts of at me. I don't mind, and I appreciate the challenge. So I will look at that. But what do you need for right now?
We just need, I guess we,
You need a
Do we
majority,
need
you need
a-
a second and you
no,
need
I
a
don't
vote
know,
to
I
add
don't know
it to
if we
the
need it.
agenda?
I think it's a majority of people who are here. We have 5 people here. I think we can do it.
Let's do it.
Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
A quiet eye.
I think that's a majority. We'll put it on the next meeting's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. And people of Palestine, thank you.
Now we need to talk about conversion therapy, and we're very happy to have our city attorney, Stephen Postma, here to help us with that. He's putting in a lot of work, and I know he's got to leave early.
I'm happy to be here, as I said. What I've given you is really a focal point for discussion, and partly the city of Huntington Woods recently passed an ordinance. You all have read that. It's the first ordinance in the state of Michigan, and that just came through in June. I think it became effective, I believe, July 1st. So I've attached that as one. I know the attorney who drafted this, and I've been in conversations with her and what they went through there. And Huntington Woods was quite proud to be the first one in Michigan. I also talked to her about legal issues related to these type of ordinances, and I'm not going to get into that tonight. That's usually a discussion that I have more with the council on this. But I wanted you to have that as a sample, and I wanted you to have one that the mayor actually had a contact that had been working on this through the mayor's office, and they forwarded that to me. I redrafted a little bit.
Yes, we saw the first one.
But both of them, and I've taken some language, I wanted to get it in front of this group for a couple reasons. First of all, as far as definitional sections and issues of gender identity and gender expression and sexual orientation, those are issues that this body is uniquely qualified to really both help define and to talk about. And so it's less of a legal issue than one of sensitivity and understanding as to when we're drafting an ordinance, what language would we use in such an ordinance. I want to make clear that this type of ordinance is, from a local ordinance standpoint, we're talking about licensed providers who are licensed by the state of Michigan. And so that presents an issue because ordinarily, I know, for example, there have been 18 states that have dealt with this issue. And that's something that sometimes states are concerned about, whether our state is concerned enough to pass something about it may be an issue for you all, because sometimes states don't move as fast as cities would like it to do. But that's an issue out there that we'll be talking about. But it really, this ordinance and the ordinances that are coming up from cities are dealing with that there's it's unlawful for a licensed provider to do this. For example, a psychologist or a licensed therapist. And again, the issue for conversion therapy obviously is a treatment to change, especially for, well, it is for minors, to change orientation or to change gender expression or gender identity. And certainly people in Ann Arbor are sensitive to this subject. I know that there have been articles about that. I believe Mr. Stanton has written about this issue before. And so it's out there. It's obviously a concern to folks, but I want to make sure that the prohibition is talking about licensed people. It's not dealing with, for example, parents who may. I know there's a case of parents sending. There's groups down in Florida, for example, that engage in this. And so my point in getting this in front of you is to really begin the discussion and to hear more what the concerns are, to let you see what other communities have done. Obviously, there's litigation about these type of things out there, and I'll deal with that separately. But I wanted you to see something, and I provided you two models to really get a sense from this group what they were talking about in dealing with a conversion therapy ban, and that's why I dug these up. I've spent some time looking at both the law and the issue, but I really wanted it to be here so that you could begin your conversation.
Do you, so we have two versions. I mean, have people read them? Do you want us to start sharing our thoughts about them, or do you have something you want to talk about what you've done?
No, I guess I did have a couple questions for the group that because obviously this was communicated to us, I think maybe even in February, that this was an issue that this group had identified. And the one thing I didn't get a sense for was whether or not this is an issue that is, again, the issue of injustice anywhere resonates. But is this a problem that you all see as happening? That this is a therapy issue, that licensed therapists in the city of Ann Arbor are actually doing that. And the reason I'm asking is that certainly would go into a legislative purpose or otherwise. And while I'm not connected intimately with the issue, I'm unaware of that happening here. And so I just wanted to raise it with the group, whether or not there have been concerns out there that would inform how we deal with the ordinance.
I have a question. Can you explain again why it's only limited to licensed therapy professionals?
As opposed to whom?
As opposed to banning anyone from providing conversion therapy services. Like a lot of religious institutions will provide conversion therapy.
The issue of the law regulating parents or regulating a religious institution has constitutional dimensions that have been deemed by other states and by other cities to not even be worth discussing.
What if an individual feels that they are competent to provide conversion therapy and seeks to do so? What would the city's position on that be? I mean, would it be covered or not covered?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Anyone could say that they're providing conversion therapy and put children through that experience. So I'm suggesting that perhaps it be applied exactly.
Right. And again, what I did in copying what was in bringing to you what was out there was in part to stimulate this discussion about what you all were concerned about. And so it was not necessarily intended to limit it, but if the request is to broaden it, it broadens, let me put it this way, it broadens my analysis of what I would have to do in recommending to the council what issues would be, legal issues would be out there for an ordinance like this to pass. And so, again, my suggestion is to bring you something that has been adopted as a model and adopted in the first city, but I will continue the discussions with, for example, city attorneys or others who have recommended to cities and ask them that exact question. I mean, I think it's a useful thing, and their view of it doesn't dictate how I think about it, but it helps me understand what the issues are out there that we can talk about. I will say that dealing with parental rights and religious rights is an entirely different constitutional dimension. And so I'm not saying don't do it or do it. I'm just informing the group that there will be additional research that will have to be done. And I really appreciate your thoughts on it.
One of the things that will help us answer the questions that you've raised so far and will help us define some of these issues, and that's why it's a good thing that you're here now, is that we really have to reach out to more, to the Jim Toy Center, to probably maybe the neutral zone, and we have started doing that. I mean, it's not that we haven't done any of that. However, we will get, now we know specific questions to ask them, and we'll need to do that. I think the licensed therapist is what is common in these kinds of, because it's much easier, and most professional associations who deal with these licensed people already are saying this is not healthy therapy. This is, it's a problem. Whereas if you have somebody who's not, we've got professionals who are passing this off as an effective professional therapy when in fact their professional associations say, no, it's not. We've got research that says it's harmful.
Yes, but as that occurs, it's driven underground.
I hear that.
Right?
You're right.
So when we still haven't protected the children.
Well, we protected them to some extent because everybody is a little bit more iffy if it's not.
No, but if your family wants this for you,
I know
and it's available here in Ann Arbor, that's a problem for us.
Yeah.
And I guess that was my initial question, just to understand the scope of the issue, is whether or not any licensed therapist in the city of Ann Arbor was engaging in this practice at all, to your knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
And I have not heard. I have not heard that there has been. Although we would not necessarily hear.
No, but we could also find out if there are unlicensed folks out there.
That's true.
Is conversion therapy being offered in the city in any capacity, by someone of any capacity?
I can ask. I sit on the board of the Jim Toy Community Center, so I'm happy to ask. But I do have a question. Without getting too far into the weeds, how would the city enforce something on a local level that is not recognized either on the state level or the federal level when it comes to enforce? Like, how are we going to do that? What if I'm a federal employee working in a federal building in the city of Ann Arbor?
The issues that you raise are legal issues. They're issues that are in some ways being litigated in other states. My understanding in my own research of this is that the state that is involved in this the most is actually the state of Florida. And again, I'm not an expert on it, but they currently have. I know that there are two federal cases down in the state of Florida, and which you're probably not surprised is that as I believe two different judges saw the issue two different ways, and so I have my attorney colleague looking at me, not surprised at all.
Not at all.
And in those cases, you raise an excellent point, and that is you have a licensed therapist down there challenging on First Amendment grounds their right as a therapist, and those issues are going forward. There are other issues out there, and that's something that again, I'm not prepared to talk about a full legal analysis here, but your point is well taken. This would be licensed under state law, and the issue of a city ordinance on that, there certainly are issues to deal with. But I've brought it here because the chair asked, but also because in bringing the issues forward, it's a beginning point of conversation without a full. I don't have answers to all the questions right now.
Okay. Well, it sounds like maybe even nationwide, we don't have all the answers
Yeah.
yet either, so,
I
okay.
think that for some cities, frankly, it is an important statement to make about the values of their city, and they don't believe that they will ever enforce it at all, have the need to enforce it.
In some ways, it's got the same kind of enforcement profile as the ordinance, the other human rights ordinance provisions that we have in our non-discrimination ordinance. And that is that people will come to us, in that case, they still may come to us, or they may come to you. They may come to you for the human rights non-discrimination ordinance also. And we try to mediate it, and there is a penalty. There's 500 for this one in Huntington Woods. There's $500.
I left it blank.
You left it blank in yours,
Yeah.
but so far.
Because I just,
But
again,
that's
the
about what
scope
it
of
is
the
and for
issue.
for the NDO as well.
I wanted to find out more about it, in part because when we dealt with things making changes to the human rights ordinance, there were things that had triggered it in some ways. There were an interest in broadening it, but there were, as I recall, there were some specific incidents that you wanted to address that occurred here in the city of Ann Arbor. And again, my asking the question is more going to the legislative findings. Is it an issue that is currently pressing or brought to you through a problem that's been raised in Ann Arbor? And if so, I would like to know more about it, because in some ways it addresses what the commissioner said about, what is the problem that we're trying to address with the ordinance.
I agree with that.
This was brought to the mayor's attention by a student of his, I think, and that might be the first place to start.
My follow up with that, but also
Okay.
you all are in the know of the broader human rights community,
We
and
can also
I
ask.
put it back on you in some ways. It would help inform me.
Okay. Yeah. Other thoughts about this as a beginning?
I think there's some value in preventing it from ever occurring here also.
So just having an ordinance about it is
To
preventative.
reduce the risk
Sure.
that someone will attempt to start a practice.
Yeah, especially because it is common now. I mean, it is happening more and more. And it is also part of sex addiction kinds of stuff. I mean, it's called a lot of different things. So,
I would say too that, first of all, I would vote in favor of the ordinance of the city of Ann Arbor draft that you made. It's nice and succinct. But I also believe that perhaps in today, notions of questioning youth are much more frequent, and I could see that perhaps in Ann Arbor there will not be licensed therapists that we know of that are counseling full conversion from gay or lesbian to straight. But there are a lot more questioning youth these days who licensed therapists may be potentially tempted to quash the questioning. In which case, I would strongly support this as a resolution to put it out there for any questioning youth that it's safe to question.
So you're suggesting that we broaden the search for information from groups that support folks who are questioning?
I don't know if I'm suggesting that. I'm saying that I think that the notion of gender fluidity, for instance, is one that has captured the imagination of a lot more youth. And to the extent that this prevents kids in our communities from questioning their identities, I would certainly strongly support it.
so what is our next step on this?
what is the next step?
Yeah.
I think that the next step is, again, to make efforts, as the Commissioner has said, and get back either through this group at the next meeting, or you can certainly send me information. And I think for this group to decide, as far as the scope, again, these have been through licensed professionals. To the extent that people want that broadened, I could certainly look at that, but that raises additional concerns that I'll tell you right now, you would need to be aware of. And so I think there's a reason why, when we're looking at these things, in the research that I've done so far, there's a reason why that they and I'm going to look at some additional state laws too. And so I think the next step would probably to take what you all have said, gather some more information, and report back. And the good thing about coming is you always get more assignments, and you get an invitation back. And so I'm welcome to do that.
Maybe you're right. I mean, maybe what I'm suggesting is broadening this, because if this doesn't capture gender questioning,
Right.
then perhaps that should be added to the language.
I think so. I'd like to see it.
Thank you for making that point.
So we should get back to you with the information we have about, especially any incidents of this happening in Ann Arbor. And I think probably reach out to at least Jim Toyson.
Yeah, I'll send a message.
Yes.
And I can look at this and provide some additional thoughts in writing before the meeting, so it perhaps can stimulate some additional thoughts.
Do you want any input about the Huntington Woods?
Yeah, I think until we get this additional information, the actual wordsmithing of an ordinance doesn't. You don't need to do that until we get more focus. Is what I would recommend.
Sure. Makes sense. Okay? So on the agenda next time.
Okay.
And we'll be in touch.
What date that is, so I can write it down.
It is always the second Wednesday of the month. So be there one too. And we've got one other thing that if you still can stay a little bit longer.
I'm happy to stay.
This is something that Michigan, or we call it Michigan, the Human Rights Campaign is interested in, has put on their Municipal Equality Index, which Ann Arbor fills out every year and which gets published every year. So it has some driving effect on making an issue an issue. But it also is an issue that people are talking about, and that's bullying of youth, especially youth who are LGBT, but not only. And bullying seems to be getting more and more pronounced. I talked to Sherry Sell in the equity, I can't even remember what it's called, but there's an equity department now, and she is also concerned about this and would like to partner with us if we decide to go on to do it. What Michigan, what Human Rights Campaign is trying to get people to do is probably form a task force of people like Jim Toy, like Neutral Center, people who want to think together about what can we do to prevent bullying of kids in public spaces. There's already in most of the schools, maybe all the schools, a bullying policy, an anti-bullying policy, especially that also cites specifically LGBT. That's of course what they're interested in. I think we ought to expand it. If we're going to do it, we ought to expand it to other things as well. Protected class kinds of things, I assume. But are there things that could be done to prevent bullying? One of the things could be an ordinance. One of the things could be you know, if you got a group together and decided to talk about bullying and how you prevent it, there are probably lots of ways. There's some training that you could do for people. In cities, we're talking mostly about parks, pools, libraries, bus stations, that kind of thing. And it gives the staff a reason to break up, or a way maybe that is convincing to break up these kinds of harassing interactions. I don't know. I think an ordinance might be hard to deal with. It might be hard. It might be another way to give kids a misdemeanor violation, and I don't like that.
Right, and that's what was going to be my response. Well, two things. Number one is I get nervous when we talk about ordinances because, you know, it's another law.
Right.
Another law. And I mean, how many laws do we already have? But specifically when you talk about bullying and you're specifically talking about minors, the library staff isn't going to do it. They're going to call the police. And now we're talking about, you know, do we really want to put forth, and I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just putting this out there for discussion, do we want to put forth another ordinance that gives the police another reason to be able to, you know, go to the transit center and say, you can't come here because you've been bullying people? Is that really what we want to do?
What about, I mean, we have all of these, you know, equity initiatives within the city. Can we integrate training of staff, like park staffs, temporary summer park, you know, I know that, like, for example, Cheryl Sum, who works at the Canoe Liveries, has a great reputation in the city for training her staff in customer service, right? And I know that Parks has been working on some equity initiatives. Can we do something at the city level that integrates, you know, bystander intervention, you know,
training them to do what?
Can we? That's up for, but instead of having a law, is there a way that we could have
training staff,
something that is?
I would also recommend, if I could, Madam Chair, I would recommend that you find out from the Parks Department what they all already do, because I have a feeling that the Parks Department at the city pools wouldn't have any hesitation to intervene immediately when somebody complained that they were being harassed at the pools. I would hope that was their response, and so I think you might it might help to even hear from or get some input from right now how the staff deals with those things if it is raised. So.
But I know it might be, you know, something that, given the initiatives that are happening in the city already, that we could just ask about what's going on. That's a great point. And then, you know, if there's something that this group recommends that might be beneficial, that are in line with these goals. I can't really imagine park staff or other city staff being, you know, in customer service when you come in the front door, whatever it is, being resistant to that.
No,
and I think
it might be something we can do to help that make that happen.
Yeah.
Have a Smokey the Bear of bullying or something. I don't know, but I mean something that makes it clear that we don't do that here.
Yes, and I would echo that Commissioner Stevens makes a wise point in the sense that and it's rare to hear this from the attorney who loves the law, but the laws have a downside, and again, when you're looking at enacting laws or you need to separate the policy that you're trying to do. Obviously, our laws right now prevent assault. If it's any sort of improper touching, there are laws about threatening and so on. And so I would, until you look at all those parameters, I would recommend cautiously adopting something that is, well, I'd be involved in the drafting. I would caution against drafting something that, again, can be used in a way that this committee is drafting one thing and the policing commission may actually have a whole different view of that, And so you might need to have referrals back and forth before you get too deep into it. There are serious policy issues.
No, I would think if we
Yeah.
were going to do it, we'd be working.
Yeah.
No, and I can see how this could easily be used against people of color.
Sure.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, it would be.
yeah,
I-
to, you know, disproportionately. 'Cause I mean, you know, you got
Yeah.
young black man, 12, 13, who's 6 feet, he's intimidating. And if he says anything to any little kid, they might consider that bullying. You know, so it really is a very fine line that if we're going to adopt this kind of an ordinance or put this kind of an ordinance forward, that we have to be really, really careful that it's not something that can be used disproportionately. You know, kind of like these schools expulsions, and those kinds of things. Yeah, they have good intentions, they really do, and I support them, but unfortunately, disproportionately, African-American males end up suspended more than anybody.
And there's no reason, I don't think, to believe that this would be any different.
I'm just saying.
No, yeah.
I'm
Just be
hearing
careful
that.
is all I'm saying. I'm
No,
not saying yeah or no,
right.
I'm just part of the discussion.
And yet, I now.
I wasn't trying to get anyone for or against.
You overshot.
Well, but is there like a positive, you know, I look in the schools and I have kids in the schools and I think the pro-kindness approach that they're taking at where my kids have gone to elementary school is actually much more powerful in terms of changing behavior and seeing the repercussions and having all of these like kindness committees and acts of, you know, and buddy benches and all of those sorts of things, as opposed to anti-bullying campaigns. You know, and so I think there are. You know, I look at my daughter's middle school, at her middle school experience, and after having come through an environment like that, and it seems to be much kinder than I remember middle school being. And I think, and part of that is that I think they are really being raised through this culture of thinking about these things, and it's not, I don't think it's as much anti as it is pro. Not to be over, not to be Pollyannish about it, but just, you know, I do think that there I have seen more positives from that side as opposed to the punitive side.
I hesitate, you know, every time we come up with a new thrust that we want to investigate, it's a lot of work in there. It also takes the opportunities from other things that we want to do. Is this something you want to spend any time on? And if you do, hopefully we could partner with somebody else who would do a lot more of the work, like Neutral Zone, for example.
Does the city currently have any resolution or anything against bullying?
We're looking in, he's looking.
I'm not aware of any council resolution. And again, the ordinances, if we did, you would know about it as well as I.
Right.
And I'm going to just check with my prosecutor.
Yeah,
and
I don't
Yeah.
think so. Because I'm just thinking of other ways to get the message that the city of Ann Arbor doesn't, you know, support bullying without it becoming like a law,
Right.
an ordinance. Yeah.
Does anybody know if the HR department has an anti-bullying policy for the employees of the city of Ann Arbor?
Don't even
Dialing it
know that.
back a little bit to see, you know, like if we're focusing on behavior, I agree that the be kind thing sounds so much better than stop bullying.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, at my place of employment, we have an actual policy that prohibits certain behaviors.
Bullying of adults.
Bullying. Yeah, oh yeah. And I just wondered if there was anything for the city of Ann Arbor, you know.
Commissioner, we have as you can imagine, we have an anti-harassment policy, and I believe that covers a wide range
Bullying.
of things that
It's sexual harassment, or is it any harassment?
harassment in the
Yeah.
workplace.
Okay.
It's-
Okay.
What is it called when an adult
bullying.
treats a minor poorly? is that captured under any current descriptor?
Well, there's
Well,
child
I mean, people
abuse.
bully teenagers all the time. I see it out in the world,
We do.
right?
Yeah.
So, can we,
So there are two things to that for me. One is, what is bullying, number one. That's my number one thing, because, like I said, some people, you tell them to stop. I mean, is bullying threatening to hurt you, or is it just, telling you, get out of my way?
well, I agree that it all needs to be.
Yeah, there's there's the whole, how do you define bullying?
Right, but I was thinking for the city, that mandate to treat, even if we do it, to treat minors with kindness and patience and.
Not a teenager, I ain't doing it. But,
Not a teenager.
yeah, I'm living in my house, it doesn't go well. But I think, for me, again, what Attorney Postma is saying is that, and I know the county has that, they have the anti-harassment policy. So as an adult, you can't go around harassing people.
Right.
Which I guess would be bullying. If,
That's a speech.
right,
Definitely.
it's in that whole
Yeah.
level of bullying.
Yeah.
And when you think about an adult bullying a kid, again, for me, because I come from a community where every adult in the community could bully me, because it was allowed by my parents, right, as
I see.
a way to
Yeah.
keep me,
Yeah.
in check. We, again, have to be careful, and I think Postma said this a little bit. We're getting into areas, and what I hear anyway, and again, I'm new tonight, we're getting into areas where are we gonna step over the line of parenting, of community correction,
Oh, yes, no,
community build,
I was only specifically addressing it to city employees.
to city employees, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just that.
I think I agree with you. We as a society now, directing our attention and our energy towards more ordinance, more laws, more things. And we are ignoring totally the family role in the society. If we are talking about youth, kids, 13, 14, 15, the primary role here is the family, the parents, the older brother and the older sister, to contribute rather than, Human Rights Commission have a new ordinance. Do you think the 13 years old down in the street, he will care one way or another?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or is he coming to City of Ann Arbor to read our ordinance, before he do something,
So we use the words bullying and harassment somewhat interchangeably, but harassment tends to be, like through the EEOC, it tends to be based on a protected class, it tends to be, based on your race, your gender, your disability, your religion, where bullying is more picking on somebody who is vulnerable. So I don't know if that makes a difference. If we're talking about bullying,
What makes you vulnerable?
yeah,
What makes you, what's picking on? You know what I'm saying? So that you're getting into these words that are so hard to define in my head. Because, again, grew up in a family of a bunch of people. My older sister walked by and hit me. That's expected. You know what I mean? It's not bullying. It's part of, like he said, the whole family dynamic. And so for me, it's hard to distinguish between, again, if we're trying to set the tone for the community standards, I can understand that and I can get behind that. But if we're getting to a point where we're trying to have laws to control that kind of behavior, I agree that it needs to go back to more of the be kind as opposed to it being a law that we kind of enforce
Well,
against.
let me take you back, though. What we're really talking about, I think, is what is damaging to kids, what the kind of bullying, first of all, that is far more prevalent for LGBT kids than other kids. That it is the kind of thing that makes kids want to kill themselves, want to be, I mean, it's very demeaning, it's very targeted to some characteristic that they don't have any control over. And it is what we're hearing, I don't know, for me, what we're hearing from the kids who are shooting other kids in school shootings, they were bullied. I mean, it's not just to be kind. It is.
Oh,
I mean, it's a serious issue.
I feel strongly about not turning it over to the police.
No, I understand that.
So some other message, some other way of conveying the message, I think would be safer. I mean, we could end up creating another human rights problem if it's being disparately enforced, and it will be against folks
No,
of color.
it doesn't sound like anybody wants a.
Right.
Well, I'm all for making that statement that should not be tolerated in the city limits of Ann Arbor. Absolutely, I'm all for that. How to do it is where I'm at.
That is the problem.
Yeah.
So we don't have any sample templates from other communities?
Yes, we do.
We do.
Yeah.
When I think Andre was on the commission, he and I contacted the Ann Arbor Public Schools on behalf of the Municipal Equality Index, because one of the criteria was to ensure that the school systems had in place a bullying policy, and they do. It defines what a bully is and what bullying is. Mm-hmm. It also lays out consequences when and if there is evidence there, and how they would address it. They have certain levels, and depending on the behavior or conduct determines what category it fits in, and then the consequences that are laid out. So to respond to your question, Ann Arbor Public Schools has that in their policy, and we asked them to ensure that that was communicated to all staff to meet the Municipality Equality Index criteria, which then resulted that year in us getting 100% on that index. So I would point us to them, and also because it would work in concert with what they already have in place and what they're doing to address it if and when they find evidence thereof.
What about though municipalities or city ordinances?
I don't know about them, but I know that in order to complete that index, cities are mandated to respond to that criteria.
But not necessarily with an ordinance.
Some do. Ann Arbor is set up differently because the school system does not come under the auspices of the city. They are separate and distinct. And that's why we had to go directly to them and ask them to incorporate that, to ensure that we were saying, when we answered that question, that we were compliant with that.
Now, I sent you a sample ordinance that I don't know why I can't remember that. Human Rights Campaign has suggested that people use, but they also say that Washington, D.C. has a very good one, and Washington, D.C. has a task force that works with them. So I don't know exactly, I didn't have time to look for it. I thought they were going to send it to me, but they didn't.
Chair Stambaugh, on that point, I will ask Margie Radabov, who was the general counsel for the city of for DC.
Oh.
And, I will
Please.
we'll provide some input back on that.
That would be terrific, because that does sound interesting. Well, then let's just raise it next time also.
And obtain a copy of the Ann Arbor Public Schools.
It's a good idea.
Policy on bullying.
Do you think it's one policy for the whole public schools?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Students' rights and responsibilities, it's public.
Have you seen it? Okay. So can you get a copy for us? Great, thank you. Then let's move on. Human resources, these are small things, fortunately, because we're running out of time.
Excuse me, Chair. I'm going to take my leave.
Thank you so much for staying.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for help with everything. If you remember Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission had an ordinance that said we were interested in following and engaging city staff on what's going on with the Human Resources Department. I talked to Howard Lazarus recently. He tells me that there is an investigation going on, done by an attorney, mainly to find the facts in the situation. Then there's going to be, not clear what, but there's going to be a cultural assessment of some sort. He has offered to talk to some of us to help us provide input. And one of the things I would want is some names of people who are interested in it, and we'll schedule something. Because there's a next step, and we probably have the expertise on this commission that could help. So who would...
And we
who
have
would-
not gotten a report yet about
No, it's not done yet. He
that.
said soon.
Yes.
And I don't know how public it'll be, but
But
that
I
is the
can-
first
I-
step that had to be done before we could do anything.
Are they engaged, has the job been posted for the?
No.
So initially, there was going to be much earlier in the process an RFP that John Fournier put together to do a cultural assessment. Some council members on the administrative committee decided that, council administration committee decided that they had some concerns about what people knew and what people didn't, and so they wanted to have some additional layers of investigation that I was not personally supportive of, but that happened and are happening, and that it didn't make sense to issue the RFP prior to the findings of said investigation because that might inform the future RFP.
Thank you.
Hence the delay.
So this is going to be a slow process.
I think we'd be getting that report though soon.
It should be coming in soon.
No, he said it was going to be soon.
Yeah.
And as soon as that report is in, then it's time to start thinking about next steps. I think that was the advice that city administrator had gotten from city council, to wait until that was in. So I would like to find out who in this group is interested in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Pam?
I am too.
Okay. I'm going to be asking for a couple things for people to participate in, so, choose things you're interested in. The next thing is just an update from the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission.
Not only is Robin a commissioner, she's also the chair.
That's right. So you could give us an update.
An update.
Yes.
We're plugging along. Let me just say that. There's a lot of work, a lot of forms that we're still developing. The way to take in complaints is currently the discussion point. There are 1 or 2 complaints that have come in since we've been sworn in. And we met with the deputy chief, who's the acting chief right now, him and what was her name?
Bonnie Teal.
Bonnie Teal. She's the one currently processing
Professional
them.
services, yes.
Correct. And kind of left it out in the air until the new chief is in, so that he can have some input. My thinking and what I'm going to propose, because we have a meeting tomorrow as well, is that currently there's like 2 avenues that are going on, and I think that's going to be a little dysfunctional, but we'll see. So a person can complain through the police like they always have, and now we also have ICPOC that people can complain to. So like Denise received an actual phone call. Someone called the ICPOC number, made a complaint. She accepted that. In the interim, the police are accepting other complaints. So the issue is how do they come together? How do we get them together so that we're aware of every complaint that comes in? My proposal was that they all come through ICPOC. That's still to be discussed. But how do we get all of the complaints so that they're all aware, that we're aware of every complaint that comes in. So we don't end up with a situation where someone calls and say, you know, I filed this complaint, nothing's been done, and we can't answer that question because it went in through the police, you know what I mean? So we're trying to navigate that really fine area, and the police were kind of open to them all coming to us. So we'll continue to have that conversation. So, like I said, we're developing forms and developing processes right now. And with the new chief coming in, we definitely want to give him the opportunity to participate in that. We don't want to say, this is what we decided, and this is what we're going to do. So, yes.
That's a good question. So, in the formation of this, we had also talked about the idea of having community liaisons for people who did. Is that part of the conversation?
Part of the conversation is tomorrow. Is we had people, 3 or 4 people, I think Commissioner Caldwell is leading that, who are identifying who are our community partners. And once we get that kind of picture of who it is, then we can have a better idea of what kind of person we're looking for. We don't even know. I mean, we need a community liaison, but what does that, I mean, like.
Or the idea of if people didn't want to file a formal complaint, but they just wanted someone who would make things known.
Yeah.
That these are issues that we're hearing about and I know one of, like for example, Stephen Daniels, who sits on the Housing Commission, who's a pastor in the communities, keeps saying every time he says, you know, I want to be one of those community liaisons, you know, let me know. So okay, they're just starting. But I think there are people in the community who are really eager to do that work, and I would hate to see their enthusiasm quashed or, you know.
No, we don't want to
put them to work.
But we also don't want to bring in, you know, we have 12, is there 12 of us? 11. Who don't know each other.
Yeah, sure.
You know, we've met, 4 times?
Yes.
Yeah, and so there's that too, just trying to really figure out who everybody is, and, you know, people on this end, and that's why I don't like that room upstairs. People on this end are saying, yeah, we want to change, you know, our meeting time to 6 o'clock, and then we got people on this end saying, no, we want to keep it at 5, and they're not seeing each other. So it's hard to, you know what I mean? So we're still working out what time to meet.
You got that figured out.
I don't know. I got another email about it, so I don't know.
I just think it was just an idea that I was.
But I know I'm with you. We don't want to lose the enthusiasm either, and we've talked about doing some meet and greets at different places in the community where we would take 3 or 4 commissioners, so we don't have quorum, but they would go and have coffee or whatever with people and be available for people to meet them and know that the commission exists and how to get in touch with us and all of that kind of stuff. So that's where we are. We're on, like I said, meeting number 4 tomorrow, or 5.
And that's the thing, we've scheduled 2 additional meetings.
We have to try to get through the paperworky stuff.
You know, yesterday wasn't a scheduled meeting, you know, up until the last time we met, and at that time we scheduled 2 additional
meetings tomorrow and 1 other one, because again, just the formalities.
A lot of work to do.
Yeah, it's just take it forever. But we're coming along.
But yeah, I think, you know, it is coming along. I think, you know, big component is the new police chief, and that
big component.
It starts July 15th.
Yes. Monday.
So Monday.
That's coming up.
So well excited to see that, and we got obviously Robin here now with the Human Rights Commission to give us a better understanding of what's going on in ICPOC, because it's good to come from a voting member, not just a council member liaison. So yeah, there's committees and subcommittees, and really understanding the ordinance, and we had a flow chart put together.
Yes,
Frost with a flow chart together. So just understanding what.
Do you guys need that, the flow chart?
Okay.
Yeah, if you can email
sure.
this commission a flow chart of how that commission is structured to function.
Yeah.
And just understanding that, you know, took a meeting or 2, and still, just like earlier we talked about the mandate for this commission, understanding what the mandate is for that. And another thing that we'll be working on tomorrow is the mission statement and the vision statement.
And the mission.
So hopefully crafting that and get some information managers, assigned, and so it is, I think, moving. I think there'll be a lot done the next 2 months. I hope at least there'll be 4 meetings or so in a period of 8 weeks.
And then we're going to a Nicola National, what is it called now? National
Convention?
Yeah.
Yes, it's September
Organization
22nd.
of Community Law Enforcement.
Yeah.
It's a national organization of community law, or ICPOCs.
Yes.
Yeah.
For police
Yes.
oversight.
Yes.
So you get to see what they do
ICPOCs.
elsewhere. That's terrific.
Yeah.
Correct.
Detroit.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's
Are
in
you all
Detroit
gonna
and
go?
it's in September.
Yeah,
No.
we're all, not all, I mean.
Not all, I think there's about 5 or 6.
Five.
That's
Yeah.
terrific.
It's very expensive, so we can
Yeah.
only send so many people. But it'd be great for us to go and talk to other people from all over the country who've already been doing it and, see how things,
Wonderful.
else places are working. So hopefully, like you said, I think we'll be definitely accepting complaints within the next couple of weeks, because we were supposed to have a meeting yesterday about it, but I had trial and didn't get out in time, but we have that rescheduled for this coming Tuesday. And so, once we can work that process out with the police, we can at least start accepting them. And then the process we talked about, and we will be talking about again tomorrow, is assigning one commissioner to each complaint, so they are responsible for following up with the police to make sure, that they're doing their part, so that we can hit our deadlines, because the collective bargaining agreement for the police has deadlines that they have to have their investigation done. So then we tried to set our deadline, a couple of weeks after theirs, so that we'd have time to review what they did and then get back to the complainant.
So we set a deadline of 3 weeks.
It's
that-
21 days.
21 days for a commissioner to follow up with the complainant
Yeah.
and let them know the status of the complaint. Not that it'll be resolved.
Right.
But let them know
The progress.
it's not lost somewhere.
It could be
and
just,
it's-
we just reaching out to let you know that your complaint is still being investigated. Or it could be, here's what they decided, we agree or we don't.
And are you you have a notification like we do right away that says, thank you, we received your complaint,
yeah.
somebody will,
Yeah.
okay.
We have a complaint form up,
Good.
Yeah,
and we have the
Good.
ICPOC.
So we do have a
email
website
address if you
too.
want to email.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we
Oh,
do
you've
have
done a
the
lot.
Well, the webpage is,
Yes, webpage, yes.
which again is part of the city, and we're an independent commission, but okay. Somebody's got to pay for it. And I'm not going to, so,
Have you had any training yet?
Any training?
Yes,
No,
remember there was a lot of
Jason-
police training.
Yeah, no, but Jason, they've offered, and we're gonna talk about the police academy tomorrow, because they've offered to do a, academy based on what we need, and you guys are all invited to come to that and participate. It should be
Citizens Academy.
Citizens
Yeah,
Academy.
like 4 hours,
Yeah.
Citizens Academy.
Yep.
That
So
could be
please-
very,
I've seen that.
please let us
Over
know
2
that.
days?
Oh,
He's
you
talking about 2 days.
doing 2 days?
Yes, if
Okay.
you agree to that. He can do it in 1 day, but he has the 3 commissioners who volunteered the topics. And so he says he's made up some mini modules for that.
Okay,
And you decide if you want the 1 or 2 day session.
okay, that's awesome.
So I put that on the agenda.
On top of the
Yes.
ride-alongs.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
doing-
yeah.
yeah, everybody can sign up for ride-alongs, and
You doing use of force?
That's in the Washington Community College. I think that's in
It
the fall
is.
time. I didn't get to go last year. I definitely want to go this year.
Yeah.
so again, we invite you all to come, participate, we want your input. We're brand new.
Please
I
send
have
us
no idea what I'm doing.
time and date and stuff. Please send us time and date
I
and
think
stuff.
you do.
Yeah.
We will do that, we will.
If you send it to me, I'll send it to everybody, or Denise will send it to
But
everybody.
we're grateful that you guys worked so hard to make sure that ICPOC, or the commission was put into place. And I'll tell you, I was on the task force, and I just kept saying, because I've been a public defender for over 20 years, of all of the places in Washtenaw County, this is really not the one that needed it. But I think that if Ann Arbor establishes a good one, it could have a ripple effect throughout the county. And there are some agencies who seriously need some oversight. Yeah.
Agreed.
And they're the ones that you don't even think about. It ain't Ipsy. It's yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay,
So-
well, that brings us to trespass, which also involves you guys, and that's why we're not working on trespass right now. They just need some time to breathe, and we want, the next step will involve both of our groups. I mentioned, we left, the way we left it, for those people who are new and don't even know what we're talking about, there is a notice of trespass, and there is a trespass policy of the AAPD. There was one before Blake Transit Center situation, and there was one that was revised after we gave a lot of input and they accepted some of it. We still had problems. We came up with a list of problems with both the notice and the policy. And that looked good, and it looked like the best thing for us to do is sort of to get together with some of ICPOC, some of us, some attorneys, and some AAPD people, and just go, down the list. And they were open. The police were open to that. ICPOC was open, and I think the city attorneys will also be open.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a plan. What happened since then is that we got confirmation from some things that we got hints of in the public comment, but not anything specific, so we couldn't do anything with it. And that was that people, it sounds like some kids, especially kids of color, are being trespassed for standing on a sidewalk in a group. And that doesn't fit with the ordinance that I read, at least, where it says you've got to have the owner, the occupant, or the agent of the owner or occupant. And I don't know who occupies the city streets, but I assume that's, and it also doesn't jive with what Chief Faunus told me, which was that in the last year only, the only police initiated incident he knew of was Blake. So I heard that not only from some people who came, but then Keita came up with she has some things that she is involved, and you're going to start collecting data on it, right? Incidents.
Well, sure, but the opportunity to interact with those kids came and went because.
Oh, it's gone.
That
particular group.
Yes. That particular.
But we're looking for new incidents. We're looking for something that's verified, that we can ask questions and get some answers.
I think that's a difficult position to put kids in, though. I mean, they're going to have to.
We want stories that at least have more than just everybody does this all the time. We need something specific that we can look at. And when I talked to the person at in your office, the public defender's office,
Nicolette,
who deals with youthful.
She covers our juvenile court.
She
so
said,
she handles almost
yes,
all
I've
of the
dealt
cases.
with it a lot. And then all of a sudden I think, now wait a minute.
We do.
Well, then we need to know about it, because if we don't touch that.
But what you have to understand is that we're not getting the trespass cases just from the city of Ann Arbor. They're from all over the county.
Okay.
So any kid who gets charged with trespassing throughout the county.
So you may not know that it's Ann Arbor.
Exactly. Our office will get them all.
So we need to find that out.
Right.
Your examples, if I'm not mistaken, were in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, we were talking about Ann Arbor because I was sharing with the kids about the Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission.
Right. And we have to be careful because, as Nicolette says, and I'm sure this is true, she doesn't want trespass to go away.
No.
Because it protects kids from more serious problems, like disobeying an officer, because then you've got is that a felony?
It can resist instructing officer is a felony.
Okay, I mean,
that could be
so this
something
this is a ticket
Right.
now, and so you don't want. On the other hand, you don't want it abused. You at least want a policy about it, and I don't think there is a policy. I mean, I have to look over the policy again, but I didn't see it in the first policy.
You mean like a police policy?
Yes, AAPD has a policy about how you do this, how you charge trespass and what you do. And I didn't, I mean, we're always talking about owner and occupant. And this is different. And I have a feeling that the police are called agents of city streets.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. I came into this discussion, just like a lot of you commissioners here, well, it was an ongoing topic. How many of these have been issued? Just the one? Have there been more than one? Because by the police, have they issued more than one citation for trespass? I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, they do. There's
Do
something
we have
like
numbers?
350 a
There
year.
were over 300 to the best of their knowledge, but the challenge with that
But-
is some of them were,
Right, reading trespass.
no, not so much that. Sometimes they were issued, multiple citations were issued to the same person. So that was all counted in that 300 number.
But the
I mean, for different days, I assume. I mean, not,
Well, I'm just saying, it's difficult to know then.
And they didn't track it. They said they didn't track it.
you're saying that trespass can be issued by the occupant or owner or agent of the owner or occupant, but we have police sometimes issuing trespass on
public property.
on public property. How many of those have they issued?
They don't know. We asked those same
Yes,
questions.
we don't.
So what are,
owner can do that.
well, what,
An owner can do
the
that.
challenge that we understand governs now is that.
No, but they call the police.
They call the
That's what
police,
they
exactly.
do.
That's
It's
And the current legislation is that the city of Ann Arbor, when they are called to issue trespass or read trespass, we learned that there's several versions of trespass. So there's reading trespass, there's informational trespass, and there's something else. At any rate, they default to state law. Ann Arbor does not have its own trespass, either ordinance or policy or.
No, they just passed it.
Well, now we do.
Okay. They didn't have.
Right.
All right, and so several of us met with Ariana Slay, and she expressed surprise that Ann Arbor didn't have it. She also said that based on some of our concerns, the previous, I don't even know what's in place currently, but what was in place is that there was nothing in that issuance of the paper, whatever it was, informational read, to indicate to the person, to the recipient, how to challenge or appeal that. So that was one of the criteria that we asked that they do. And so you would think since the police issued it, that you would appeal to the police. Not so. But none of that was in the information that was disseminated to the recipient. So we can't give you numbers, although we have asked many times, because our police department, when they've been involved, have said, one, they don't track it. Two, it might be multiple issuances to the same individual. And I believe Ariana Slay said that oftentimes when they fail to respond to the initial issuance, it then got, you couldn't find the individual, so then they missed their court date, and then they had, a warrant for, yeah. So it became horrible, a domino effect. We're still waiting for that information. What we also asked for was, what was the policy? When we got what they did give us, it was a revision. We still don't know what the original policy says.
No, you have that too.
Okay, we do now.
Yes.
But my point is that this was a learning process for us. It's been going on 20 months now, from the initial meeting that we had as the result of the Blake Transit incident. And we were specifically asked, we the HRC, to look into this and come up with some very proactive and positive things so that we don't duplicate what occurred at the Blake Transit Center. In the process, we learned that the police were contracted to do that with the Ann Arbor Transportation Authority. Since then, that contract is no longer in force, so they don't do that now. But we the HRC said there should be some exemptions. And one of our former commissioners says there is, when it comes to the library, there's like, you can't do it for an indefinite period of time or default to state law, which says up to a year. You can't do it in parks. We know of an incident that occurred at the mall. So there were all of these variables that we wanted answers to that we're still waiting for in some instances. But to respond to your initial question, the short answer is we don't know.
Well, I mean, it's obvious that it's being discussed with ICPOC, you know, on purpose, so these policies and procedures can be addressed in a more formal way with this new commission.
Yeah.
When you're done.
Go ahead. I'm
Okay, I'm trying to, and you and I have not had a real chance to talk, we were going to, but I'm trying to understand what it is that this commission wants with the trespass.
We want a good policy.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. It's too subject, I mean, it's too, you know, it just
Arbitrary.
depends. Yeah, it's just way too, there's no such thing.
We've got to make sure it's not done on, not violating any of the protected classes. And we have to make sure that it's at least standardized so they can start gathering data and figuring out what the patterns look like, because the patterns don't, even the stuff we've seen doesn't look good.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, what do you want from us?
Well, that's the question.
That's what I just want to know when I talk to.
What I was hoping to get was a few people together to think about how we at least find out if there's a problem also on the streets.
Okay.
Because that's what we do. So, but in other words, we've got, so far we have worked for 20 months or something, and we have one set of revisions, and now we're going to get another set of revisions. One of those revisions sounds like it also has to have to do with people on the street. And I think we need something that sounds fair to everybody. Because now when it's discretion, it's wide open for violation. I mean, you know, it's very easy to bias, and as far as we can tell, and as far as what Nicolette said, she thinks it's mostly mostly groups of kids of color.
Oh, of course, we all know that, yes.
So what can we put in place to make that less likely? If we're talking about just people gathering.
I think
and that's
we came up with, however, a draft, I'll call it that, of what we would like the trespass form, certainly, to look like. So we can start there.
Yeah.
Because it incorporated some of the things that we felt were problematic with the then form that was used. You know, lack of information, how to appeal, to whom, and what time frame. We also had some recommendations and suggestions that I think were documented at one of our meetings of what we would like to see incorporated, so we can start there. And then from there, my understanding is that we wanted input from the Police Oversight Commission, either individuals or collectively as a group, of what you may have personal knowledge of outside of those parameters, to come up with a working document that we felt was at least something we could then disseminate to the public. There was the information that I recall we received came from then Chief Fannis when we asked, when can this be implemented, the form? And his comment was, well, it could be disseminated at the next stand-up, whatever police have when they get their marching orders, when they start their day.
Yeah. Roll call or whatever they call it.
Yeah. And so when we learned what had actually what the document actually looked like, we were unpleasantly surprised to learn that it didn't incorporate all of our suggestions. It incorporated some, but one of the things that was the sticking point that I recall that I spoke about strongly was that they mandated it had to be a year. The time frame for the, I'll call it a ban, or the, you know, you cannot go on that property, it still defaulted to state law.
Correct.
What was problematic for me is that state law says it could be up to a year, but in the actual form, it mandated that it was a year.
Right.
And I was adamantly opposed to that, and I spoke vociferously about that at one of our meetings. So, to my understanding, that has not been addressed.
Okay.
So I think what we're talking about is we're working toward a joint meeting with when they're ready. But in the meantime, I'd like to do a little bit more understanding this one point, because we've got everything else in place, I think, for a joint meeting.
Okay. I have a question. Have we done any research on the history of the Trespass Act in Michigan? You know, what problem was it adopted to solve? Because I have this really funny feeling. I really do.
You might be right.
To my knowledge, we didn't, either individually or as a group. What we learned was the varying definitions of trespass. And that one definition spoke about, it seemed to be antiquated, like trespassing on, I'm speaking blindly here, but like farmland, something so totally foreign that it was
Yeah,
you
it
know,
was inapplicable, it didn't help.
Yeah.
And it's private property. People who enter your house without your permission.
Well, because, you
Or a
know,
bar.
vagrancy, trespass, all of these laws were passed in a lot of states to, you know, have the ability to arrest folks. And then, you know,
Homeless people,
right.
drunks, all
It's-
that, yeah.
So, you know, I think that we bear some responsibility for looking into the history of law we are working to.
Would you like to do that?
I will.
I think we
will,
would all
my
appreciate
goodness, I
that.
will.
Okay.
Good to have you.
Okay. A few more things, small things. One is that we need somebody else to join our complaint group. We have lost Corinne. Linda, Pam, and I tend to do the bulk, and actually Linda and Pam tend to do the bulk. We are getting complaints. We do have, any of you could be asked to help with a complaint because of some expertise that you have. But in general, we take the complaints, and if we can handle them ourselves, we do. We need one other person at least to do that.
I can hear.
You'd be interested?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And I should ask if anybody else would be interested also.
Sure, if you need help, I'm certainly willing.
Thank you. Okay. We might.
Is there an uptick in complaints? Are we noticing an increase?
I think we just got 2. Right. I don't know. They seem to come in bunches. I don't know how that works.
And then there's a lull, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
Right now, we're managing them. But we need also to meet with Denise and come up, as you have, we do have a strategy, but we all have to be on the same page. And so we'll be calling you two also, and then.
I have a question. Are the complaints shared with all of us, or is
No.
it just you're the only ones that get them?
Because we do not talk about them publicly, unless we've got a specific little issue that we.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the issues that we have to talk
Right.
about at ICPOC, which is really difficult because, for us, we want to make sure that everybody's evaluating equally and that everybody's aware of what complaints are coming in so that it's not just an isolated. So that's why I was asking, like, how are you guys doing it? So we'll have to think about that.
But you've got a little bit more power than we do to do,
Closed
I think.
sessions and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, Open Meetings
that
Act.
we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
But you do have a challenge with that. This is
We
how
do.
we've handled ours.
We do share in our meeting that we have a complaint so that the full body knows.
And the nature of it,
Yeah, so
Okay.
we can say it's race-based or age or sex or what have you.
where you don't talk about the facts.
No specifics.
No, yeah.
Not even the gender or, something that's more definitive about the complaining party. And we do that deliberately, one, because we
Right,
publicized
yeah.
it.
And we also have, we've got to make sure that no one here has a conflict with that particular issue in person.
Gotcha.
Conflict of interest. I have 2 more things that we ought to do before we leave, and we've got 4 minutes, and they have to do with the minutes from May.
Okay.
So, have people looked at the minutes from May?
The information that I got, you sent the same one twice. I didn't get the second one.
I happen to have a copy of the second one too somewhere.
So I got.
I did
think it
send
was-
it. You're right, I
yeah.
did do
And you
twice.
sent a second email.
Right
but
away.
Both of them were the same for me. I can show you, because I kept looking for the, I understand that the May 28th meeting was a special meeting.
It was a special meeting.
And I remember the specifics.
You're quick.
Here. Oh, here.
But I just, thank you.
You're quick.
So let's start with the May 8th meeting.
Okay. Okay, so did you want me to pass this on, because this is two
I don't,
copies of
oh,
the
I'm
same?
sorry.
I didn't know it was two.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Does anybody
Did
else
you
need one? Well, you can't.
I was going to say,
You weren't there. May 8th meeting. Are there any comments that anybody wrote? We have a motion then to approve.
I move to approve the May 8th meeting minutes as written.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. How about the special meeting? Did you get a chance to look at it?
I
It's
didn't,
very
but that's
short.
okay. Yeah, no, I recall what we
Yeah.
did discuss.
Yes, you did. And by the way, the resolutions have been posted and the annual report was posted, so this is just a May 28th.
I have your note.
Yep, I gave Denise a note because I'm listed as absent and then listed as a voting person,
So
and I
you
was
were-
there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I want credit.
She was there.
So as amended,
Okay.
I move to approve it.
thank you. Second?
I second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
I think we're done.
Oh, do we have like announce, oh, can I will not be at the next meeting, I will be on vacation, my apologies.
Oh, I hope you have
I'll
fun.
have fun.
Thank you.
My kids go to camp in Massachusetts, so we have like a parents' weekend kind of thing, and then we stay out there just to pick them up a few days later.
That's so cool.
Oh, that is cool.
Oh, but the right ones.
My son used to go to the Y camp and he had a really good
Oh,
friend
well,
that
you
lived
you
out
have
in
to put that on
the
the agenda.
Massachusetts or
Oh.
somewhere.
next
They would
month.
start
They were
texting
offering-
and calling each other in
Email addresses.
January to
Yeah.
make sure that
That-
You don't
that's-
have to.
I booked the
I
right
can
and
ask
they booked the right week so they could be at camp
We
together.
were sending a separate email
Michigan?
address for
It was a
them to
Camp
go.
Burkett for the Y.
Yeah, I was
Right,
saying, if
yeah.
there's a
Not
form
Burkett, the other one, one way up.
Yes, you
Yeah,
have to be able to
Algonquin, that was the
receive
one.
that.
So
But
they
I
go
love
to,
that camp.
they go to like this,
Yeah.
it's the state Y camp in Massachusetts, it's a girls' camp and a boys'
Oh,
camp.
cool.
Yeah, where I went to camp when I was.
Wonderful.
Well, are you done?
Yes.
Yes.
Very
So,
good.
yeah, and it's
Thank
4
you.
weeks, so we,
Oh, good.
yeah.
Yeah.